In Portugal, you can still buy a village home for less than a scooter. Not a scam, not a crumbling ruin, real houses with neighbors who wave. Imagine moving to a town where life slows down. Streets are lined with historic homes, and the scent of bread floats from every corner. While Lisbon prices sprint skyward, these hidden gems offer space, sun, and centuries of character. But cheap always has a reason: red tape, isolation, or the occasional wildfire. From misty mountain villages to river towns where paperwork flows slower than the current, each place has a story and a bargain. Wait until you see number 1. Beautiful, affordable, and stubbornly timeless. Like the video, so the algorithm thinks I'm a Portuguese realtor. By the end, you'll either want to move or just escape there in your imagination. Alentejo, the silent watcher of Alentejo. In the heart of Alentejo, Alentejo basks beneath the golden sun, its cobblestone streets winding past whitewashed cottages and the imposing silhouette of a medieval castle. The town moves to the rhythm of the seasons, where time seems to slow and the past lingers in every stone. Around 4,973 people call Alentejo home. Homes are listed for approximately $85,000. Rents hover around $350 per month, and the cost of living is about 20% below the national average. Afternoons decide your schedule, not your phone, chuckles Rosa, a local cafe owner, as she serves a steaming cup of bica. Perks? Expansive skies, rich history, and a pace of life that invites reflection. Drawbacks? Limited job opportunities, slow bureaucracy, and summers that can scorch the earth. With no traffic lights to hurry you, the town's rhythm is dictated by the sun's arc across the sky. As evening falls, the golden hues of the setting sun paint the plains, offering a tranquil end to the day. The scent of fresh bread, the taste of olive oil harvested from nearby groves, and the distant toll of the castle bell create a sensory tapestry that feels timeless. Walking through Alentejo is like stepping into a living postcard, where every corner holds a story. And if Alentejo's serene pace feels like a step back in time, wait until you experience the next town, where the river gleams under the moonlight, and the tales of the past are still very much alive. Alcutim whispers along the Guadiana. Along the winding Guadiana, Alcutim rests where whitewashed houses lean into narrow lanes, and the Moorish castle watches silently over the water. Boats drift lazily along the river, and life flows at its own unhurried pace. Around 2,198 residents call Alcutim home. Homes list for roughly $95,000, rents average $320 per month, and the cost of living is about 18% below the national average. Here, the river sets the pace, laughs Manuel, a retired fisherman, waving to passersby while sharing a story from decades past. Perks? Peaceful waters, golden sunsets, and a sense of time stretching lazily. Trade-offs? Limited job options, irregular ferry connections, and Wi-Fi that sometimes prefers the river to your devices. Cars are few, and neighbors nod as they pass. The scent of fresh bread mingles with salt air. Laundry flutters in quiet courtyards, and the river murmurs like an old storyteller. And if Alcutim feels like stepping into a calm painting, prepare for the next town, where hills climb higher, and the pace of life hides secrets that no river could ever carry. Alfândega da Fé, echoes of forgotten fires. In Alfândega da Fé, a sun-baked stone house can still cost less than a used motorcycle. Nestled on the gentle hills of Trás-os-Montes, the town winds between tiled roof homes, olive groves, and vineyards that stretch as far as the eye can see. The old market square hums with echoes of centuries past, while the scent of fresh bread drifts from small bakeries. Around 4,827 people live here. Homes list for roughly $85,000, rents average $300 per month, and the cost of living is about 17% below the national average. Life here moves slower than a donkey cart, chuckles João, a local baker, insisting every loaf tastes better when kneaded to the rhythm of village chatter. The perks? Quiet streets, open air, and space to breathe. The trade-offs? Jobs mostly in farming or small shops, infrequent buses, and Wi-Fi that sometimes forgets the 21st century exists. Stone walls glow under the afternoon sun, olive oil glints in every jar, and birds punctuate the gentle silence. Step carefully along narrow alleys and sunlit squares, feeling the weight of history in every corner. And if Alfândega da Fé feels like a hidden haven, brace yourself for the next town where riverbanks twist and secrets wait patiently, refusing to be uncovered at a glance. Algezur, secrets beneath the Algarve sun. In Algeciras, a sunlit cottage can cost less than a week of city coffee. Nestled where hills meet the Atlantic, the town hums with the rhythm of surf, olive groves, and the occasional wandering goat. Streets twist unpredictably, opening onto small squares where locals linger to chat and watch the tide. The hilltop castle isn't mere decoration. It watches over the town like a patient sentinel. About 5,370 people call Algeciras home. Homes sell for roughly $120,000, rents average $450 per month, and everyday costs run about 15% below the national average. Don't rush, says Tiago, a local surfer who swears the waves set the town's pace. The perks? Beaches, sun-soaked alleys, and quiet afternoons where clocks feel optional. The catch? Seasonal work, slow transport, and Wi-Fi that sometimes prefers to nap. Scooters zip past whitewashed walls, dogs bark at gulls, and the scent of freshly baked pastries drifts from tiny cafes. Sunlight glints off cobblestones, while the ocean wind carries a whisper of salt and adventure. And if Algeciras charms you with its lazy rhythm, get ready for the next town, where rivers carve valleys, paperwork crawls like molasses, and history seems to hold its breath for visitors willing to uncover its secrets. Aljustrel, beneath the mind's shadow. A hillside house in Aljustrel can cost less than a weekend in Lisbon, yet it carries centuries of history etched into its walls. The town rises from Alentejo's golden hills, streets lined with shuttered homes, iron balconies, and echoes of miners' footsteps long past. Abandoned shafts punctuate the landscape, reminders of the copper and silver legacy that shaped both land and life. Around 5,100 people live here. Homes list for roughly $85,000, rents hover near $380 per month, and the cost of living sits about 12% below the national average. Don't wander near the old shafts alone, warns Carlos, a retired miner. The rocks remember more than we do. Perks? Space, sunlight, and quiet streets where the only traffic is a dog or a passing scooter. Trade-offs? Jobs mostly in mining or agriculture, slow renovation permits, and Wi-Fi that occasionally takes a nap. You feel the sun on warm stone, smell fresh bread from the square, and hear distant clanks echoing from abandoned mines. Shadows stretch long as evening descends, painting the hills like a story half told. And if Aljustrel feels like a town steeped in secrets, prepare for the next stop, where rivers bend, forests murmur, and even the air seems to guard untold tales. Almeida, Fortress of Whispers. A fortress home here can cost less than a month of Lisbon rent, yet it comes with walls that have witnessed centuries of sieges, secrets, and whispers. Sunlight bounces off the star-shaped fortress, spilling over cobblestone streets lined with shuttered homes and iron balconies. The scent of baked bread drifts from small cafes, mingling with the faint tang of history in the air. About 3,000 people live within the fortress's embrace. Homes list for roughly $95,000. Rents hover near $420 per month, and everyday costs run about 10% below Portugal's average. Tourists come for the walls, stay for the stories, chuckles Helena, a baker whose pastries smell as timeless as the ramparts. The perks? Cinematic streets, quiet corners, and history at every turn. The trade-offs? Limited jobs beyond tourism and local shops, slow renovation permits, and Wi-Fi that sometimes prefers a nap. Stone echoes footsteps as the wind whistles through towers. Sun glints off ancient gates and shadows play hide-and-seek across the squares. Beyond the fortress, valleys rise and rivers twist, landscapes that feel alive, where bureaucracy moves at its own stubborn pace. The next town waits quietly, its own story ready to unfold in ways Almeida never could. Amarante, shadows along the Tâmega. You can still buy a riverside home in Amarante for less than a city parking space, with walls that have witnessed centuries of festivals, floods, and whispered gossip. The Tâmega River snakes through the town, reflecting sunlit churches, arched stone bridges, and narrow cobbled streets that twist like ribbons. Cafes spill onto plazas, and locals stroll as if keeping time with a rhythm older than memory itself. About 11,000 people live here. Homes list for roughly $150,000, rents hover near $550 per month, and the cost of living is 8% below the Portuguese average. Here, the river knows more than the mayor, laughs João, a cafe owner who insists no news travels faster than the current. The perks? Riverside views, history around every corner, and streets made for wandering. The trade-offs? Seasonal tourism dominates jobs, buses arrive unpredictably, and Wi-Fi enjoys its own schedule. The scent of fresh bread mixes with river mist, sunlight dances on bridge arches, and water ripples carry soft murmurs through the town. Amarante feels timeless, yet the hills beyond promise forests that breathe, roads that twist, and secrets that linger quietly, waiting for those curious enough to follow. Angra do Heroísmo, the island's hidden watchers. On Terceira, a cliffside home can cost less than a single night in a Lisbon boutique hotel, yet it comes with ocean views and walls steeped in history. Colorful buildings tumble across volcanic cliffs, winding streets leading past centuries-old churches, plazas, and fortresses that once fended off invaders. The Atlantic roars below, carrying salty whispers of bygone eras, while narrow alleys invite quiet exploration. Around 35,000 people call this UNESCO-listed city home. Homes list for roughly $200,000, rents hover near $650 per month, and everyday costs sit 5% below the national average. Don't rush, says Luis, a local guide. The city unfolds like a story. If you blink, you miss a chapter. Perks? Stunning ocean views, rich history, and streets that feel alive. Trade-offs? Jobs mostly in tourism, occasional ferry cancellations, and Wi-Fi that sometimes gets seasick. Sunlight glints off pastel facades, ocean spray mingles with the scent of volcanic soil, and cobblestones hum softly underfoot. Lanterns flicker as evening descends, casting shadows that play across ancient walls. While Angra dazzles with color and charm, the next town waits beyond forests and cliffs, hiding secrets that even seasoned locals rarely uncover. Arcos de Valdevez, where the river whispers. A riverside house in Arcos de Valdevez can cost less than a week of Lisbon rent, yet it comes with forested hills, cobbled streets, and centuries of stories built into every stone. The Vez River winds through the town, reflecting whitewashed homes, arched bridges, and shaded plazas. Forested hills lean close, whispering with the rustle of leaves, while narrow alleys twist unpredictably under sunlight and shadow. Around 11,000 people live here. Homes list for roughly $150,000. Rents hover near $450 per month, and the cost of living is 7% below the national average. Life here has its own heartbeat, says Inez, a cafe owner who swears the river sings more than any radio. The perks? Calm streets, river views, and a pace that makes calendars optional. Trade-offs? Jobs are seasonal, public transport is sparse, and Wi-Fi occasionally forgets the 21st century exists. You smell fresh bread mixing with forest air, hear the river's gentle murmur, and see sunlight glinting off stone bridges. Cobblestones hum underfoot, carrying stories in every creek. And while Arcos de Valdevez feels like a secret kept by nature itself, the next town waits with twisting lanes, glimmering rivers, and whispers that hint at secrets even the hills hesitate to reveal. Arganil, the hills that hold secrets. A sunlit cottage in Arganil can cost less than a month of Lisbon rent, yet it comes with mountain views, winding alleys, and centuries of quiet stories. Stone streets twist past terraced homes, centuries-old churches, and cafes where locals sip coffee as if time itself slows down. Olive groves stretch beyond the town, their leaves whispering in the wind, while mountains cast long shadows that reach into every plaza. Around 13,500 people live here. Homes list for roughly $130,000, rents hover near $400 per month, and everyday costs run 6% below Portugal's average. Don't hurry, laughs Sophia, a local baker. The mountains like to watch, and they have all the time in the world. The perks? Peaceful streets, fresh air, and history around every corner. Trade-offs? Jobs mostly in agriculture or tourism, patchy public transport, and Wi-Fi that occasionally forgets it exists. You smell baked bread blending with mountain air, feel sunlight glinting off stone facades, and hear the distant rustle of olives in the breeze. Shadows stretch and bend, hinting at stories just out of reach. And while Arganil charms with calm and dignity, the next town rises with rivers that sparkle, forests that murmur, and mysteries that refuse to be ignored, even by the keenest traveler. Belmonte, between stone and shadow. A centuries-old stone house here can cost less than a weekend in Lisbon, yet it comes with towers, cobbled streets, and whispers baked into every tile. Sunlight glints off fortified walls, bouncing across narrow alleys and sun-bleached facades. Olive trees sway on nearby slopes, and the air smells of fresh bread, herbs, and time itself. Around 6,800 people live here. Homes list for roughly $150,000. Rents hover near $450 per month, and daily life runs 5% below Portugal's average. History has a stubborn habit of staying put, jokes Marta, a local artisan, brushing dust off her pottery. The perks? Mountain views, quiet streets, and centuries of charm. The trade-offs? Jobs mainly in tourism or small crafts, permits slower than a mule, and Wi-Fi that occasionally forgets the 21st century exists. Cobblestones hum underfoot, shadows stretch between towers, and the wind carries faint murmurs from hidden cellars. Beyond Belmonte, valleys fold into misty hills, rivers twist out of sight, and the next town waits with secrets that might follow you home, or at least make you glance twice at every shuttered window. Bragança, fortress of forgotten tales. You can still snag a fortress view apartment in Bragança for less than a Lisbon parking spot, though it comes with walls that have survived centuries of sieges, and rumors that they never forget. Sunlight splashes across cobblestone streets, historic churches, and quiet plazas where locals sip coffee as if time moves differently here. The castle towers loom above, its stones whispering tales of vanished soldiers and forgotten celebrations, while narrow alleys twist unpredictably beneath the sun. About 35,000 residents live here. Homes list for roughly $170,000. Rents hover near $500 per month, and the cost of living runs 4% below the national average. Don't hurry, laughs Miguel, a cafe owner whose espresso tastes as strong as the history in the walls. Even the shadows have stories to tell. Perks? History at every corner, castle views, and streets that feel cinematic. Trade-offs? Limited jobs outside tourism, patchy Wi-Fi in some alleys, and bureaucracy slower than a horse cart uphill. Sunlight glints off battlements, wind rustles ancient tiles, and cobblestones hum underfoot like a forgotten song. And while Bragança charms with stone and story, the next town rises with rivers that shimmer, forests that murmur, and mysteries that refuse to be left unturned. Cabeceiras de Basto, where monasteries murmur. A riverfront house in Cabeceiras de Basto can cost less than a weekend in Porto, yet it comes with monasteries, winding streets, and centuries of quiet stories built into stone walls. Streams curve beneath arched bridges, cobbled lanes twist between whitewashed homes, and hills cradle the town like a protective hand. The scent of damp earth and baked bread drifts from plazas, while shadows linger under centuries-old trees that seem to listen more than they sway. Around 20,000 people live here. Homes list for roughly $150,000, rents hover near $450 per month, and daily life costs about 5% below Portugal's average. The town moves slowly, but it remembers everything, jokes Manuel, a local baker dusting flour off his apron. Perks? Peaceful streets, scenic riverbanks, and monasteries that double as history lessons. Trade-offs? Jobs mostly in agriculture or tourism, buses arrive when they please, and Wi-Fi sometimes prefers to nap. Sunlight glints off bridge arches, river currents hum along cobblestones, and the wind whispers faint chants through old cloisters. And while Cabeceiras de Basto charms with quiet reverence, the next town waits where forested hills rise, rivers shimmer in secret bends, and mysteries linger just beyond the paths you thought you knew. Celorico de Beira shadows over the castle. A stone house with castle views in Celorico de Beira can cost less than a Lisbon coffee habit, yet it comes with winding streets, centuries of history, and walls that seem to remember every footstep. Narrow lanes twist beneath terraced homes, while the ancient castle looms above, its stones glowing in the afternoon sun. Olive groves and low hills stretch beyond town, carrying the faint scent of wood smoke and centuries-old secrets. Around 5,500 residents live here. Homes list for roughly $120,000. Rents hover near $350 per month, and cost of living runs 6% below the national average. Even the walls gossip, says Luis, a cafe owner whose espresso is stronger than the castle's foundations. Perks? Castle views, quiet streets, and a pace that makes calendars optional. Trade-offs? Jobs mainly in agriculture or tourism, limited buses, and Wi-Fi that sometimes prefers to nap. Cobblestones hum underfoot, sunlight glints off stone towers, and shadows stretch like memories that refuse to fade. Beyond Celorico de Beira, forests thicken, rivers twist unexpectedly, and the next town waits with secrets that might just follow you home, or make you question whether history ever truly rests. Castelo de Vide, the town that whispers. A sunlit townhouse in Castelo de Vide can cost less than a weekend getaway in Lisbon. Yet it comes with medieval streets, whitewashed walls, and rooftops that shimmer like gold in the afternoon sun. Alleys twist unpredictably between ancient homes. Hidden courtyards hum with silence, and the castle above casts a shadow that stretches across the town like a silent sentinel. The scent of baked bread drifts from cafes, mixing with the faint aroma of herbs from small gardens tucked into stone corners. About 3,800 residents call this town home. Homes list for roughly $140,000, rents hover near $400 per month, and daily life costs 5% less than Portugal's average. Time moves slower here, says João, a local artisan polishing lanterns, but even the shadows have appointments. Perks? History at every corner, sunlit streets, and a sense of calm rarely found elsewhere. Trade-offs? Jobs mostly in tourism, patchy internet and winding alleys, and permits that move slower than a mule uphill. Sunlight glints off castle walls, cobblestones hum underfoot, and lanterns flicker in courtyards as if rehearsing a forgotten play. Beyond Castelo de Vide, hills fold into forests, streams sparkle unexpectedly, and the next town waits with secrets that might rewrite everything you thought you knew about Portugal's hidden gems. Castro Daire, where the forest listens. A riverside cottage in Castro Daire can cost less than a monthly Lisbon Metro pass, yet it comes with forested hills, twisting streams, and whispers woven into every stone. Paths curve through dense woods, cobbled streets thread past centuries-old homes, and sunlight filters through leaves like liquid gold. The air smells of pine, moss, and freshly baked bread, while shadows slide along alleyways as if searching for company. Around 8,900 people live here. Homes list for roughly $120,000, rents hover near $350 per month, and cost of living runs 6% below Portugal's average. The forest doesn't gossip, but it notices, says Rosa, a local gardener, smiling as she prunes herbs by a stream. Perks, rivers, hills, and a pace that makes calendars optional. Trade-offs? Jobs mostly in agriculture, limited buses, and Wi-Fi that occasionally prefers the treetops. Footsteps echo softly across bridges, wind rustles pine needles, and sunlight sparkles like hidden coins in the stream. Beyond Castro Daire, valleys bend, shadows gather in unexpected hollows, and the next town waits with secrets so quietly kept, you'll swear the forest whispered them to no one at all. Castro Marim, where the tides conceal. You can still grab a riverside townhouse in Castro Marim for less than a Lisbon parking spot, though it comes with salt marsh views, tidal whispers, and a castle that watches every ebb and flow. Streets curl between whitewashed homes, alleys hide quiet plazas, and the marshes shimmer gold in the afternoon sun. Seagulls wheel overhead, and the scent of brine mixes with freshly baked bread from a corner cafe. Around 6,100 residents live here. Homes list for roughly $150,000, rents hover near $400 per month, and the cost of living runs 5% below Portugal's average. Watch the tide, warns Helena, a fisherman's daughter. Sometimes it brings more than fish. Perks, scenic waters, medieval streets, and sunsets that feel cinematic. Trade-offs, jobs mostly in tourism or fishing, buses that run on island time, and Wi-Fi that occasionally prefers the castle's shadow. Salt air tangles with seaweed and pine. Footsteps echo along cobbles, and lanterns flicker as if rehearsing centuries-old secrets. And when the tide retreats, Castro Marim leaves traces of its hidden stories, teasing that the next town may hold a mystery so curious, you'll feel it in the wind before you even see it. Chaves, hot springs and hidden whispers. A riverside townhouse in Chaves can cost less than a weekend spa ticket, though it comes with Roman bridges, hot springs, and streets that murmur old secrets. Cobblestone lanes twist past thermal baths, fortified walls, and sunlit plazas where shadows linger longer than they should. Steam rises from the hot springs, curling around walls and whispering tales of merchants, soldiers, and visitors who never quite left. Around 11,600 people live here. Homes list for roughly $120,000, rents hover near $350 per month, and the cost of living is 4% below Portugal's average. Even the water has a memory, jokes Anna, a local cafe owner ladling espresso as steam mixes with the river air. Perks? Thermal baths, history at every corner, and a pace that encourages lingering. Trade-offs? Jobs mostly in tourism or farming, buses on their own schedule, and Wi-Fi that sometimes prefers the steam over your signal. Sunlight glints off bridge arches, river currents hum against stone, and the scent of mineral water drifts through alleys. And when night falls, Chaves exhales stories that refuse to settle, leaving behind traces so subtle, you might sense them brushing past you long before any footsteps appear. Covilhã, mist among the mountains. A tiny mountain cottage in Covilhã can cost less than a month of Lisbon rent, yet it comes with misty streets, wool-scented squares, and peaks that seem to keep secrets of their own. Streets wind between stone houses, sunlit plazas open to soft breezes, and the fog drifts down alleys like a quiet visitor. The former wool mills, silent now, hum faint echoes of labor and long-forgotten songs. Around 20,800 residents live here. Homes list for roughly $95,000, rents hover near $400 per month, and cost of living runs 5% below the national average. "Don't mind the mist," says Rui, a local baker, shaking flour from his hands. "It just likes to listen." Perks? Mountain air, quiet streets, and history at every turn. Trade-offs? Jobs mainly in textiles or tourism, buses that arrive at their own whim, and internet that sometimes prefers the peaks over your laptop. Sunlight filters through fog, cobblestones glisten with dew, and the distant bells chime like ghosts of old routines. And when night swallows the mountains, Covilham whispers hints of hidden passages and stories untold, leaving you to sense the weight of secrets even before the next town comes into view. Cova da Beira, Valleys of Secrets. A stone farmhouse in Cova da Beira can cost less than a mid-range Lisbon cafe tab, yet it comes with winding rivers, hidden valleys, and hills that seem to hold conversations of their own. Villages nestle into the slopes, streets twist past terraced homes, and sunlight glints off river waters as if carrying secrets downstream. The air smells of damp earth, pine, and freshly baked bread, and shadows stretch along alleyways like quiet observers. Around 35,200 residents live here. Homes list for roughly $105,000, rents hover near $420 per month, and cost of living runs 6% below Portugal's average. "The valley remembers before we do," says Manuel, a shepherd tending goats along a misty ridge. Perks? Space, serenity, and nature that feels almost conspiratorial. Trade-offs? Jobs mostly in agriculture, buses that vanish when you need them, and Wi-Fi that sometimes prefers the hills to your laptop. Sunlight filters through morning fog, river currents hum against stone bridges, and distant church bells echo through empty fields. And when night falls, Cova da Beira seems to lean in, leaving hints of secrets that refuse to be contained, making you wonder what hidden tale the next town along the trail might carry, quietly waiting to be discovered. Crato. Echoes of the Templar past. A Templar-era townhouse in Crato can cost less than a month of Lisbon rent, though it comes with cobbled streets, centuries-old convents, and a sense that the walls themselves remember every step. Streets twist past sun-warmed facades, fortified churches, and plazas where shadows linger longer than they should. The convent bell tolls in rhythm with the wind, carrying echoes of chants, forgotten rituals, and whispers that seem to follow travelers. Around 7,850 residents live here. Homes list for roughly $98,000. Rents hover near $390 per month, and cost of living is 7% below Portugal's average. "Don't startle the walls," jokes Tiago, a local cafe owner, polishing a Templar-era cross still embedded in the floor. Perks? History at every corner, quiet squares, and afternoons that feel suspended in time. Trade-offs? Jobs mostly in farming or tourism, buses that operate on Alentejo time, and Wi-Fi that occasionally prefers convent shadows over your signal. Sunlight filters through church arches, the scent of rosemary drifts from gardens, and distant bells hum like memories that refuse to fade. And when evening shadows stretch across the town, Crato seems to lean in with secrets of its own, leaving you to wonder what hidden story the next town along the trail might be quietly guarding. Esposenda. Where river meets sea, a seaside apartment in Esposenda can cost less than a Lisbon parking space, yet it comes with sunlit piers, sandy beaches, and waves that seem to murmur secrets to anyone who listens. The old town twists along narrow streets where fishermen once hauled nets, and alleys hum faint echoes of maritime lives. Seagulls wheel overhead, and the scent of salt mixes with fresh seafood from morning markets. Around 20,000 residents call Esposenda home. Homes list for roughly $120,000, rents hover near $450 per month, and cost of living is 15% below the national average. "Watch the tide, it remembers," says João, a harbor fisherman, laughing as a stray cat dodges his nets. Perks? Beaches, seafood, and river views that feel cinematic. Trade-offs? Jobs mostly in fishing or tourism, buses that seem to follow their own tides, and Wi-Fi that occasionally prefers the harbor over your phone. Sunlight glints off water, gull cries slice the breeze, and wooden piers creak like old stories struggling to be told. As night settles, a lone lantern swings on the empty dock, moving though no one holds it. The tide laps softly, carrying faint murmurs that could be laughter or something older. You step back, catching your own reflection in the water, and for a moment you wonder if the sea remembers everyone who ever lived here. Figueira de Castelo Rodrigo, Fortress of Forgotten Stories. A stone house in Figueira de Castelo Rodrigo can cost less than a new scooter, yet comes with hills that roll like gold under the sunset and streets that hum with centuries of history. The town winds through narrow alleys where whitewashed houses lean into each other, and every corner seems to carry a memory. Olive groves scatter across the slopes, and the air smells of dry earth and rosemary. Around 2,800 residents call this town home. Homes list for roughly $85,000, rents hover near $300 per month, and the cost of living is 12% below the national average. Sometimes the stones speak louder than people, says Maria, a cafe owner, as she shoos a cat from her doorway. Perks, silence, sunlight, and panoramic views that make every morning cinematic. Downsides? Few jobs beyond farming or local shops, limited public transport, and Wi-Fi that seems to prefer napping. As twilight spreads, shadows stretch over cobbled streets, and a distant bell rings without anyone near it. The scent of wild herbs drifts through open windows, carrying memories too old to name. A sudden breeze lifts your hair, and for a heartbeat, the town feels almost alive. Breathing, watching, waiting, yet offering nothing but questions. Goys, shadows in the river valley. A riverside cottage in Goes can cost less than a city parking spot, yet comes with the Sira River winding like silver through a valley of ancient stone. Streets twist past mossy houses, and sunlight filters through the forested hills, turning every alley into a painting. The scent of pine mingles with river mist, and the sound of water carries stories older than the town itself. Around 3,500 residents live here. Homes list for roughly $95,000, rents hover near $350 per month, and the cost of living is 10% below the national average. Listen to the river, says Pedro, a miller's grandson. Sometimes it talks more than the people. Perks, river views, quiet streets, and nature at your doorstep. Downsides, limited jobs, buses that feel like rare visitors, and Wi-Fi that prefers the woods over your laptop. As evening falls, the river glints like molten silver, and shadows stretch long along cobblestones. Mist drifts through open windows, carrying whispers you almost understand. A sudden rustle in the forest makes your heartbeat quicken, and for a moment, Gois feels alive, not just remembered, but attentive, as though it has waited centuries to notice you. Idenha a Nova, between stone and silence. A rustic stone home in Idenha a Nova can cost less than a compact city car, yet comes with rolling plains that ripple gold in the sun and streets that carry centuries of whispers. The town stretches along quiet avenues where whitewashed houses lean into each other, and olive trees scatter like watchful sentinels. The air smells of earth and time, and the distant hills hum faintly as if remembering every step taken here. Around 7,000 residents call the town home. Homes list for roughly $80,000, rents hover near $320 per month, and cost of living is 14% below the national average. Sometimes the walls talk back, laughs Anna, a local baker, as she dusts flour from her hands. Perks, space, sunlight, and a pace of life that feels cinematic. Downsides? Jobs mostly in farming or small shops, buses that appear sporadically, and Wi-Fi that seems to nap through the afternoons. As dusk settles, shadows stretch over cobblestones, and the scent of fresh bread mingles with evening winds. A lone cat crosses an empty square, pausing as if listening. For a fleeting moment, Idenha Nova feels like it remembers more than you do, holding stories in the folds of its streets that may never fully reveal themselves. Mantegas, mist over the mountains. A small stone chalet in Mantegas can cost less than a used city scooter, yet comes with mountain peaks that vanish into swirling mist and streets that curl like whispered secrets. The town hugs steep slopes where ancient houses lean into each other, and narrow alleys wind unpredictably past fountains and chapels dusted with moss. Streams chatter as they tumble downhill, carrying sounds that almost feel alive. Around 3,000 residents live here. Homes list for roughly $85,000, rents hover near $350 per month, and cost of living is 12% below the national average. Fog arrives faster than gossip, jokes Luis, a shepherd, pointing to the clouds that roll through the valley. Perks, mountains, fresh air, and a quiet pace that soothes the mind. Trade-offs? Few jobs beyond tourism or shepherding, buses that run on their own schedule, and Wi-Fi that occasionally disappears with the mist. As evening descends, mist drifts through streets and over rooftops, carrying scents of pine and earth. A crow caws from a distant ridge, and the sound echoes like a memory. For a moment, Mantegos feels alive with stories that may never be told, holding secrets folded into the folds of its mountains. Maida, Hills of Hidden Whispers. A sunlit stone home in Maida can cost less than a city bicycle, yet comes with rolling vineyards, winding streets, and a castle that seems to whisper when the wind shifts. The town spreads across gentle hills, its terraced houses leaning into narrow alleys where shadows curl like smoke from forgotten fires. Even the vineyards hum faintly, carrying the scent of grapes and earth that have aged through centuries. Around 6,500 residents call Maida home. Homes list for roughly $90,000, rents hover near $340 per month, and cost of living is 13% below the national average. Watch your step, these stones remember, chuckles Tiago, a vintner, as he sweeps the courtyard of fallen leaves. Perks, space, quiet, and wine that tastes of history. Trade-offs? Few jobs outside agriculture or tourism, buses that arrive when they feel like it, and Wi-Fi that sometimes prefers the castle over your phone. As dusk falls, the castle casts long shadows across cobbled streets. The smell of baking bread drifts from open windows, mixing with the earthy perfume of vineyards. For a fleeting moment, Maida feels like it carries centuries of untold stories, secrets folded into every stone, waiting quietly for those who notice. Mirandela. Along the silent riverbanks, imagine buying a sunlit stone house in Mogadoro for less than a new scooter. Windows catching morning light, rooftops whispering centuries of stories. The town sprawls across gentle hills and narrow lanes where old fountains murmur faintly and plazas feel like stages frozen in time. Olive trees lean over cobblestones, casting dappled shadows that seem to move when no one walks past. Around 7,000 people call Mogadoro home. Homes list for roughly $85,000, rents hover near $320 per month, and cost of living is 12% below Portugal's average. Every stone has a tale if you stop to listen, says Helena, tending her tiny garden near the main square. Perks, sunshine, wide open spaces, and streets that invite aimless wandering. Trade-offs, limited jobs, buses that rarely follow schedules, and Wi-Fi that sometimes prefers the olive groves over your phone. As the sun sets, smoke from wood stoves curls through narrow alleys, mixing with the scent of baked bread and fresh herbs. Mogadoro feels like a living memory, where every stone hums quietly and ordinary moments seem slightly enchanted, as if the town itself remembers what most have long forgotten. Povoa de Varzim, Secrets by the Sea. Sunlight glints off rolling waves as Povoa de Varzim stretches along the northern Atlantic, a town of salt, sand, and centuries-old streets. Markets hum with morning energy, and cafes spill laughter into cobblestone lanes, yet beneath the surface, the town breathes stories few outsiders notice. Lanterns sway above narrow alleys where fishermen once debated the tides, and old warehouses hold the faint scent of brine and forgotten cargo. Around 63,000 residents live here. Homes average $120,000, rents near $450 per month, and cost of living is 5% below the national average. Listen to the waves, they carry more than water, chuckles Manuel, a retired fisherman, shaking his head at gulls circling the pier. Perks, beaches, fresh seafood, and streets that feel cinematic at sunrise. Trade-offs? Crowds in summer, occasional stormy winds, and Wi-Fi that sometimes prefers the seagulls to your phone. By dusk, the sea sprays salt onto the boardwalk, and gulls wheel overhead like living memories. Povoa de Varzim holds its own pulse, a rhythm that lingers in the wind, in the market chatter, and in the quiet corners where sunlight fades. It is a town fully alive, holding centuries of stories for anyone willing to walk slowly and notice. Vila de Rei, heart of the hidden paths. At the very center of Portugal, Vila de Rei sprawls across rolling hills and twisting roads, a place where the land itself seems to breathe secrets. Streets disappear into sudden mists, swallowing homes and market squares as if hiding them from the world. Ancient chapels perch on hilltops, stone bridges arch over murmuring streams, and the quiet houses hum with echoes of lives long gone. Around 3,500 residents live here. Homes list for roughly $85,000. Rents hover near $300 per month, and the cost of living sits 10% below the national average. Walk slowly. This town remembers every step, says Anna, a local baker, smiling as she dusts flour across the cobblestones. Perks, calm streets, nature trails, and a rhythm that slows even the busiest traveler. Trade-offs? Limited shops, sparse public transport, and Wi-Fi that sometimes prefers the hills over your phone. As twilight settles, shadows stretch across the alleys and the breeze carries faint whispers through the trees. Vila de Rei is alive with stories that refuse to vanish, a heartbeat in the center of the country, holding mysteries that linger quietly, waiting for anyone patient enough to notice them. From mist-shrouded mountains to quiet river bends, cobbled streets to windswept coasts, Portugal's hidden towns carry secrets that refuse to fade. Every corner, every stone, every ripple of water holds whispers of lives long past, waiting for the curious, the bold, and the dreamers to listen. Which of these mysterious towns would you step into first? Or is there one that already calls to you, tugging at your imagination with stories yet untold? Subscribe and turn on notifications because this journey is far from over. More forgotten villages, hidden histories, and strange legends from Portugal and beyond are waiting. The next secret may be closer than you think, and it might change the way you see the world around you.